All right, guys, today's guest is Parker Stiles. He's a fourth generation real estate investor out of Athens, Georgia. He started two companies, Barrington Home Buyers and Fast Track Funding. He helps investors close deals and get the money they need fast without the usual headaches. But he also owns the Private Wealth Academy and runs that, where he teaches everyday people how to build wealth through real estate and create real financial freedom in their lives. But today, we're going to talk about two of the biggest mistakes that keeps investors stuck. Number one, holding on to bad deals for too long. And two, trying to do everything yourself instead of getting the help you need and growing faster. Guys, welcome to the Closers Club, where real investors come to learn what actually works, skip the fluff, and start closing like a pro. Parker, man, glad to have you here. Let's jump right into the meat here. A lot of investors waste months or even years holding on to deals, strategies, or in my case, sometimes even partnerships that aren't working. You call it, I love this, riding a horse too long. What's one time where you did that, and what did it cost you? And even more importantly, what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think there's been certain times where I've held on to a deal that just didn't have the juice in it. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze, so to speak. And you have to understand when to cut ties and when to move your efforts in other directions,
Right.
And when it actually is there, because it sometimes is a gray area, and that's something that I help my students, evaluate when they're looking at those deals. Should I keep going on this one or should I not? But we're closing 3 deals right now that we've been working for anywhere from 18 months to 2.5 years.
Wow.
That just closed in the last 90 days. And I guess together it's probably going to be a couple $100,000 in profits from those deals that easily I could have cut ties from and walked away from. But from a straightforward process that we do not deviate from when we have a contract on the property, whether we need to go to a memorandum of sale, whether I need to go to a list pendants, where we need to start mailing demand letters, showing up to the property and doing something special for the homeowner to make ourselves stand out, bringing that picture perfect, imagination that they had. Remember when you initially started this process, what you were going to be, where all of that stuff, you got to bring that stuff back in.
Yeah, but I definitely think there is a point of riding a horse too long. And I think probably there's 2 reasons that comes up. And maybe you've seen this with your students and your clients. One, maybe it's the same thing, right? They just have one deal and they fall in love with it and they do everything they can to try to get it over the finish line. But maybe the underlying thing is, now that I think about it, they just don't have enough leads, right? And they just focus on one deal and trying to, just milk it for everything it is. And I think that's how people get into trouble, set bad expectations with sellers, and just kind of waste a lot of time. What do you think?
I totally agree. I want to take it one step further, though, not really from a deal perspective, but from a business perspective, because this is something that actually has bit me over the last 6 months, per se, as the market has shifted. There's been different states that we were heavy in that had certain legislation come down the pike that has made it difficult for us to do the business that we used to do a lot of. And I wanted to keep the people. I wanted to keep the office. I wanted to keep the expenses, keep the marketing. As businesses and offices were shutting down all around me, I really wanted to be the guy that didn't have to have that story. And we could be the ones to make it out of it. And so it doesn't mean, though, that just because you make pivots, and sometimes those pivots are tough and you got to let go sometimes of people that you've had a really long time. But every business goes through phases. Every business has to go through pivots. And if you are not working real time alongside those and you refuse to ignore them, you're just going to dig your own grave. And it might be one you may not be able to get back out of. So having that clarity and tracking the numbers all the way through and seeing what is my bandwidth? How long can I spend down this road before I start to dig into debt or get into serious trouble? Maybe you already have debt and that's racking. You got to keep a close eye on that stuff.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is something to be said for follow through, and this is our plan, and we're not going to bounce around all the time. But there is a point where you do have to shift. If the data, right, the KPIs, Ken talks about this a lot. If the data doesn't show that this is working, then did we give it our best shot? Did we do all the things we were supposed to do? But at some point, if it's not working, it's not working. And that happens to us all of us as entrepreneurs and business owners. We have a great idea, and sometimes it feels like the greatest idea ever, but it just may not work, right?
And sometimes it's ego that gets in the way. And I'm
Yeah.
not apart from that. When things get really hot and, deals are closing and money's flowing.
Yeah.
I made a post about this today, or maybe I scheduled it for this week or something, about when business is flowing and money's coming in, we think that every software, every service, every person is like a must have for our next piece of scaling, that business. But, when things tighten up, we sometimes don't let go of those things too quickly. And we also realize when we do let go of them, or I have personally, I didn't need all the stuff I had. I really thought I needed it, and I really didn't. There was a cheaper way to do it. There was another way to handle it. And at the end of the day, it's success, to me at least, is not how much money you make, but it's how long you can obtain that freedom that you get from that financial, that inbound money that comes in. How long can you sustain that?
Yeah.
That's really the most important piece to me.
Yeah. And this is why most small businesses, they go out, right? What do they say? They only last like 2 years. So, if you've been doing as long as you have, that shows a lot that you have some longevity. But man, even me, I pull up my Amex accounts and I'm like, dude, $20, $10, $50. And then one slips through for like 300. I'm like, what has this been the last 3 months? It's so easy to sign up for stuff, or it's a free trial, right? And then we forget, and now it starts hitting us over and over again.
I review my P&Ls monthly. And for a while, we were spending, before we had to make some downsized moves, we were spending $90,000 to $110,000 a month just on repeat for many, many, many months. And it is very easy when you're at that number, whatever size your business is, to let the $200 a month here, the $450 a month there. I remember signing up for a service that was $4,000 a month, and I put some thought into it, but it wasn't even directly tied to revenue. And I was like, yeah, we need this. This is going to improve X, Y, and Z. And now I'm like, I can't even, it's a different paradigm shift when you go through really tight contraction seasons.
Right.
And, it's shaping you for that business owner of the next phase of your business when things start to go up again, because they will.
Yeah, I think I remember you posting on social when you had opened that office and you were going to staff it up and you were going to have some people there, and that's a tough thing. That's tough. We're in the opposite, where we're having to expand, which is great, but still in the back of my mind, it's a very scary thing. You're like, listen, the rent just quadrupled. What are we going to do to make sure that we're making more money so that we can offset that? So that's, I think, is a good lesson for business owners, to make sure that you're really making money. You're not just having a lot of revenue.
Exactly. Yeah, that's huge.
So cool. So you had some in-house people. You've shrunk down. You're virtual now. Let's just start like your own business. Like, what does that look like for you today?
And we were always virtual. I started virtual. Well, I guess I started rehabbing houses way back in 2015. And then I discovered virtual wholesaling in like 2016. So kind of before it was a thing. And that's when I opened in a South Carolina market. And then we bolted on a few other markets and kind of had our cores in Atlanta, Charleston, Columbia, and Charlotte. And that was all virtual for, 5 years or so. And then around 2022, probably, we did open up a office in Charlotte, and I wanted to split test the brick and mortar route of, the W-2 team. And I had I had my 1099 team. And that lasted about a year. And I'm not saying that it couldn't have worked, because I see many people that do, but I thought that I wanted an office, and I didn't really truly want an office. I got blindsided and tricked by the social media and the money guns and the ping pong table. And I'm like, I don't want this crap. I didn't even want to go to that office, but I had a branch manager and maybe had some maybe right seat, wrong person kind of deal. But we ended up, after that year, we kept 70% of the people that were in that office. And we just went back to the virtual model that we knew better and went through the next, few years with that doing well. The contraction and the hard times, I guess, didn't really start until about 18 months ago, roughly, when interest rates went up. And, then South Carolina passed a bill, doing the wholesaling, and that's still kind of up in the air. North Carolina is kind of doing something similar. But yeah, we're rolling with the punches and doing what we need to do to stay relevant.
Yeah, I think that's what's important about investors is we're very light on our feet. We can adjust faster than any government can, or state, local, federal, whatever can pass a law. But yeah, I think everybody has to run their business the way that fits and works for them. Me personally, I like in-house. I like people. I'm probably because I'm older than you, but I understand that there's a cost for that. Um, but 100%, if you want to, if you want to run a virtual thing, it all works, right? You just have to
Yeah,
find something. It's like picking your your niche in real estate, right? You have to find something that
very
that
true.
works for you, and that you're comfortable with and that you can work within. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, do you find that most of your students are working virtual, or they're having offices? What do you find?
Most of my students are virtual, or they're just kind of one man shows at this
Yeah.
point in time. And, they've got they have the underlying principles of what
Hmm.
to do, and they've done deals, but
Right.
they need help kind of building that foundation
Hmm.
and more of a consistent deal flow.
Right.
And a lot of times that starts with marketing and then how you're
Hmm.
treating the leads. And oh
Yeah.
no, when you don't get a contract right off the rip, like the process doesn't start there
Yeah.
or in there. It starts there, and
Mhm.
everything in between.
Yeah. So there's so many different ways to do marketing now. What are you finding is working best for you and kind of for your tribe over there? What are you guys leaning into right now?
Let's see. So last December, we went into PPC nationwide and kind of abandoned the localized approach because
Hmm.
I was just kind of so abandoned by every localized place that I was in was starting to pass laws saying we couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to blanket everybody and kind of go
Hmm.
wide versus deep, even though the last 10 years I've been the deep versus wide guy.
Yeah.
And that way, if something happens, we can toggle a market on or on with the
Yeah.
switch.
Hmm.
And it hasn't been without its challenges.
Sure.
But we're working through PPC and AdWords and our gross multiples and all the
Hmm.
KPI metrics, and
Yeah.
it's profitable right now.
Nice.
And then we're also just hammering our database. I mean,
Hmm.
we've got. I'm also doing some direct mail, but we've
I love
been
direct mail.
I've been marketing for a decade.
Hmm.
And I mean, we're pulling stuff out of our database. I
Yeah.
got 300 and something thousand in the pipeline right now to close just off of old leads, and some rehabs
Love
that are
that.
set to close soon. And so, yeah, it's there. The opportunity is there.
Yeah.
It's easy to wrap yourself up in it's so hard right now, and there's no deals out there. Like
Yeah.
they're there,
That
but
drives me crazy to hear that.
you have to ground and pound right
Right.
now. It
Yeah.
it just pure effort,
Right.
pure brute force effort is what
Hmm.
gets deals right now. And
Yeah.
when you're hammering in that effort
Mhm.
and you're layering in those
Mhm.
KPIs,
Yeah.
the not the lagging indicators, but
Mhm.
the leading ones, the
Yeah.
outbound calls, the
Right.
text. So you can create an inevitability of success for
Mhm.
yourself. You remove the if. It's
Mhm.
just
Right.
when you can put that much effort in up front
Mhm.
on a compounded, consistent
Sure.
basis.
100%. That was one thing we always told people we were just too dumb to quit. But, for people to say that there's no deals out there is absolutely ludicrous, right? I will tell you, when I started full time in '09, we didn't have any of the software, no AI, no shit. We didn't even have Google and Facebook, right? It was literally, you talk about ground and pound. We were just out on the streets, door knocking and putting out freaking bandit signs.
Yeah.
So the resources for people are out there, right? You just have to do that. And, you talk about the market changed 18 to 20 months ago. Well, if you could do deals then, right, when the market was amazing, you're saying now you can't do fucking deals when people are struggling? People can't put gas in their car and groceries have gone up 30%. I mean, they're just
Now
so
you
many
just have to
people.
negotiate, and you have to
Yeah.
really bring. I think people before were blinded by thinking that they actually had deals.
Yeah.
They only had deals because
Mhm.
every month the property was getting more and more
Right.
valuable. When
Right.
the rehabber, made mistakes and went too
Hmm.
long and had to
Yeah.
fire his contractor and it worked out better for him
Right.
because now you've got to
Right.
provide truly deeply discounted
Yeah.
deals to
Hmm.
true, not hedge funds,
Right.
true mom and pop cash buyers.
Yeah.
And that's a ground and pound, hitting the phones, kind
Yeah.
of way to do that. You can't just send it out on investor list and it's going to sell in a couple email blasts.
No, no, that's even on our dispo. We're calling, we're texting, we're emailing, we're posting, we're RVMing, we are doing all of the things. But that's just normal business, right? Just the easy times, where it was just a layup and anybody could come into this business and make, 30 grand a month. Like now we're just back to real business, like
How are
real
you doing the
times.
RVMs? Tell me how. I haven't heard that acronym in a while.
With my fingers and toes crossed. That's how.
Okay.
They work great, man.
I used to crush the ringless voicemail.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty targeted with them. We're not just blanketing, but it's people who are in the system, and they want to be buyers, but they do work great. Texting is actually, it's working pretty good. And, I've talked to a couple of guys who run cold calling and texting companies lately, and they say the texting is working better than cold calling right now.
On the buyer side or the seller side, or just
seller
both?
side? Seller side. Yeah. Yeah. That texting is kind of holding on. So, yeah. I mean, it feels good. So what are some of the strategies that are working good for you? I know you're doing wholesaling, but you're dipping into novations and really crushing it over there too.
It's a mixed bag right now. I mean, our last 5 deals have been like wholesale, novation, installment method, rehab, wholesale. Like we're utilizing. I mean, that's always what I wanted to do. I didn't want to have a wholesale business to have a wholesale business.
Right.
I wanted to have a wholesale business to control the lead flow. I wanted to control the opportunity, because the person who controls the lead has the power. And so I viewed a wholesaling business as a conveyor belt of off-market discounted opportunities that came across my desk on a weekly basis. And if I could have that, then over the years, I learned, started with the rehab actually, then fell backwards into wholesaling, then the wholetailing, then the novations, then the installment method, then owner financing, buying on owner financing or selling on owner financing. And so now we just compare. I have a calculator that throws it all up in front of me, and we look at returns, and we pick the best strategies based on the deal.
Yeah, that was exactly how we started in 2009 when I came to Chattanooga. We came here to buy apartment complexes, but it was the end of the world, and banks were taking things back, not lending any money. But ultimately that was why we started doing the marketing that we were doing. We just wanted to throw out the biggest net possible and pull in deals for us. And then the deals that we didn't want, that's actually how we sort of fell backwards into wholesaling. And it was, lo and behold, just like the absolute greatest time ever to be in wholesaling. So, awesome. Let's pull it back to kind of businesses, right? Because, a lot of people they struggle to get into that, that CEO mode, because that's hard unless people come from a background like a corporate America background. They're right out of college or something, or, they've had a job at Walmart and they're finding some success as a wholesaler. I feel like a lot of people, from what I've seen, they struggle into getting into that business mode and even delegating. So what was some of the struggles for you? Because I can definitely talk about mine when it comes to delegating and having a team. And, how did that help unlock growth in your business?
I mean, I think I've been taught time and time again that when I get out of the way, growth occurs. But there's also, I mean, it's the reason why business is hard is because that's a thin line. If you get out of the way for the wrong person, then you're not going to see growth.
Right.
And so I think that, comparing myself to a lot of business owners, I may tend to be more on the side of micromanaging. And
really?
I really want to make sure that things are being done the right way, or being done, period. I've gotten better. I used to always make sure it was being done the right way. But really what that means is that's my way. It's not necessarily the right way. And so once someone can prove to me through effort and conversion that they understand what it takes to produce, then I start slowly stepping back from that seat and doing less of, no, I want it done this way, and more of, I just want it done. And I want to see how you can get it done. And sometimes it's, well, I mean, gosh, then my business wouldn't look like it looks like today. I wouldn't have the systems and processes and all the way that we track and look at things. It wouldn't be anywhere close to that if I hadn't had a general manager for years that came from larger business that brought a lot of stuff from that world into this world. And a transactional coordinator for 8 years, and started as admin, then to dispo, then to dispo and TC, then to director of ops. I mean, she built so much in her time here, and it's it's only continuing to grow from there. So getting out of the way, but you kind of have to have that trust but verify mentality.
Sure. Yeah, that was a big struggle for me as, as especially in the beginning, I didn't want to even bring in people to work with us. I was I can do it myself. I'm smarter. I'm better, blah, 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 all that nonsense.
Yep.
But yeah, I brought somebody in, poured a ton of time into her, and then, let her go out and start to do some things. And, slowly, we add those people, but that's a challenge as business owners. I like to say out of 10 people you hire, 5 will be good and stick with you for a little bit. 5 are probably not. Of those 5, maybe 2, 1 to 2 of them are going to kind of be long-term people that see the vision and believe in it and want to be on that journey with you. But yeah, it is definitely, trust but verify. And, I had that struggle. And once, I've got an amazing operations manager and kind of that second, third level of managers in our company. But yeah, after a while, like they take over and you're like, I don't know what to do with my time. I can't go to this meeting. Why is this meeting not for me? I own the company.
And I love that level, but I have been humbled the last 6 months of having to make some changes and go back the other direction. So I think it's important to say, because from all of the people that I talk with on at least over the last 6 months, I've had so many conversations of just like really, really tough times right now. And a lot of different, having to change up their businesses and go different directions entirely. I think a little note could be said that when you come from that perspective, then ego can be your enemy. Sure. And it can be hard when you need to go back the other direction. But I've done a lot of, mental growth work the last 6 months. And a lot of what's come from that is you're not necessarily going backwards. You can't look at it like that.
Yeah.
Like businesses all have their ups and downs and their pivots.
Sure.
And you have to sometimes grab the reins again and get back in there.
Yes.
Even my mentor that I, put on a pedestal up here, even he says, I'm doing crap that I haven't done in 15 years in my business right now. And his mentor, I won't say who it is, but very well-off persons, he said to him, I'm sitting in rooms full of idiots all day. Just to make sure the ship stays going in the right direction. So like at multiple levels, that's what's happening right now. And you can't put yourself, if you don't need to be there, then that's amazing. But if you need to be there, first of all, you need to know when you need to be there, and don't let your ego get in the way. Sometimes that means getting back in living rooms and sitting on the couch next to a seller and going to make an offer. And I haven't made offers. I've got a little pipeline I'm working right now. I kind of like it. I stood in the way for a while saying like, I'm not going to talk to sellers again. I'm not going to do that. And now I view that as just such a like egotistical mindset of like, what do you mean you're not going to do it? What I am going to do is I'm going to do anything that it takes to get this business going back in the right direction, back to profitability for myself, for my family, all the goals and dreams that I've got set, all the stuff that I have achieved that I get to live now. I don't want to go back. Right. I'm gonna, if that means getting in the car and driving some houses, I'm gonna go to some houses. But
I have seen people torpedo a wholesaling innovation business that was doing over 500,000 every single month because they wanted to get so far removed, and they kind of bought into all that stuff a few years back of, being in the owner's box. And I don't know that a wholesaling investment business is that kind of business. I just don't. I don't know that I believe that. I do think that you've got to, have your finger on the pulse of what's going on.
So hands-on. There's so many little tweaks and things that can go wrong. It's an interesting business because it's not necessarily sellable, even though some people have done it recently. But
have they though? I mean,
I haven't dug into it. I don't know.
I'm going to tell you, I think there's some people who talk about selling it where maybe it's been on some type of owner financing deal and they're going to get some profit. I've yet to see anybody show me a check where they got $5 million for selling their wholesaling company. So
got it.
I think it's great that they talk about it on social media, but I don't know.
What I think is cool about this business though, is that it, it's produced a net worth for me. Now you have to do that right? You can't just wholesale everything. You can't just flip everything.
Yeah.
Paychecks are cool, but sometimes you got to make the hard decision to take the $300 a month instead of the $30,000 paycheck.
Yeah.
And you got to do that for years and years and years. And, now that's compounded into, I'm rolling up my single family assets and buying commercial triple net lease buildings with them. And, the tax benefits are compounding. The principal pay down benefits are compounding. The relationships I'm making with lenders for larger and more, attractive debt obligations is compounding. So it creates the assets that are sellable. It's not necessarily one on its own.
Yeah, I think that's something, especially a lot of newer investors, they don't think about it. And even back when I was starting 20 something years ago, not doing enough buy and holds. I mean, that's where the real wealth is created. Making 30, 40, 50, $60,000 rips is awesome. But my God, the taxes that you pay on them are just incredible. It's just far too much. So kind of last question, you were talking about outsourcing and delegating, like what does for you in your businesses, buying back your time? I'm sure have you read that book from Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time?
Of course.
That's absolutely amazing. What does that look like for you in your business?
I've got a sales team. I have a dispositions team. I've got a transactional coordination team. Using you guys with ezREI has been fantastic. And then I've got somebody on the lead management side. So I've got I would call that having the bases covered. There's been some scenarios where, I've had an assistant for maybe a larger head, higher paid person, and I let that person go and the assistant's actually doing the job just fine. And, a couple of examples like that, but we've got the bases covered with the team. I can't put myself, I am working some seller leads, but I can't get a deal and then, have to go worry about getting a deal sold and then worry, I've got a lending business, the coaching business, the portfolio that has, time has to be put into it. I wouldn't be able to get anything done. So you have to cover your bases, so to speak, on the lead side, the seller follow-up side, and then whatever that disposition side looks like for you, whether that's a general contractor to take it to the end, or, someone that's just going to beat the phones and find you a cash buyer.
Yeah. I love it. You talked about the coaching a couple of times. What does that look like? Tell me a little bit about that. I think it's fantastic that you are out there helping people. Because there are so many coaches out there that are not even involved in the business anymore, but they did it 30 years ago or 20 years ago or 5 years ago, or they did 10 deals and now they're coaching on TikTok. And it's mind blowing to listen to some of the advice that's out there. But, for you as somebody
easier to coach than to do sometimes. So that's probably why they're doing it.
Maybe, I guess, right? Or they're just really good on Instagram or whatever it is. Tell me a little bit about your coaching. What kind of stuff do you guys do?
So I've been coaching some one-on-one clients for 5 years, and I never really called myself a coach. But we had a lot more requests. I started doing some more social media. 1 year, about 2 years ago, I made that a thing for myself. It's like, I'm just going to start putting more out there. And I started getting more back. And I didn't really have a way. I was, hey, can we go get a beer? Can we go to, we do a virtual coffee? Can I pick your brain? And, anybody who's a mentor or a coach understands that's how it starts. And then they know that there's no way I couldn't help those people. I couldn't going to a 40-minute coffee left them with more questions than it did answers. And I was like, okay, I got to figure out a way where I can actually give them something to go create traction and results. The second thing is I got to get paid for my time. I'm not going to do it for free. So I need to have some sort of, package there. And so I created the Private Wealth Academy. It's super simple. We've got an online group that meets on a weekly basis for calls where I'm curating content. I'm bringing on guests. I do one-on-one coaching with those individuals. We've got a vault of all the information and all the software I've built in the last, not software that I've built, but all the tools that I've built over the last decade. What we've used to do close to 700 deals is copy and paste, put it into your business. I guess the 30,000 foot view that I put on it is a lot of people will go teach you how to go do more deals. And in my opinion, if I was just focused on flipping more deals, doing one more wholesale, one more rehab during some of these tougher times where revenue has dropped, deal flow has gone down, I'd be in a tighter spot or a more stressful scenario if I didn't have the portfolio that pays me
Sure.
every single month.
Same.
The net worth that I've been able to fall back on for, lines of credit and warehouse lines for my hard money lending business, and income from that business as well as a direct bolt on to all this REI stuff anyway. Buyer buys the deal from me. I'll lend them the money. I double dip on profits in 2 companies. And so I'm not necessarily coaching only on how to turn your 20 deal a year business into 50 deals a year. It's how to understand how money works,
Right.
how to understand how the real estate world as a whole, like all the different verticals that you can create income on, and not just have one stream of income, but multiple streams of income, while also balancing, don't get distracted and do too many things at once.
So if somebody was watching this, how would they know, hey, I'm the perfect person I should make an appointment, talk to Parker and see if this is right for me?
Yeah. I mean, you could go to coachingwithparker.com and we just have a conversation and we just have to see. Maybe it's not. If you're a better fit for somebody that's in my circle that I know, I'll push you their direction. It's gotta be somebody that I enjoy working with and that I feel like I can really help.
Yeah. That's the amazing thing. Once you get to a certain point, you're like, I don't work with shitheads. I don't have to do that. I want to work with people that, align and they're kind of on the same mission as I am. And
well, it's not my main thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have some mentorship as well as like you have a business that you run. So this is not it's not 80-20 coaching. It's 20-80 coaching, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. Parker, that was absolutely killer. Thank you so much for breaking it down and sharing the real stuff that most people, they skip or they just don't know about. So if you're an investor and you're stuck doing everything yourself, or you're just dragging dead weight in your business, go check out and follow Parker. He's giving you the best tools and the thinking, right, to move you faster and win bigger. If you got value from this episode, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you hit subscribe, drop a like, and send this to an investor who needs to hear this today. We drop just absolutely gem after gem. We are here to help you close smarter, scale faster, and stop wasting time. This is the Closers Club. I'm David Olds, and I will see you at the closing table.